Ooh, it is time for a little Sovereign Q&A, baby. It is I, Dr. Brian Sovereign, here with you. And this is actually a kind of a solo response to a recent real-time Sovereign that I had with J-Star. I think it was actually the first one that he and I did, and this is back in April, late April 2025. And Sek Megora of the Agora podcast had some responses to things that we had talked about. Now, in that episode, because it's been a little over a month since that came out, in that episode, we were talking about, Tron and kind of movies in general. Then we started talking about, is money fake and all of this. And it went all over the place. And this is also an episode where I got a lot of heat for people thinking that I said we should get rid of privacy, which I did not say at all. Of course, what I was talking about, and I already did a Q&A in response to those, criticisms that, look, like I was saying that this is the first time where I'm like, okay, here, tech giants or whatever, have my data, okay, plug it into AI that can give me useful metrics based upon the data that that I'm giving it. That's all that I was saying, was that it was the first time I felt like there was actually something that looked like a valuable trade-off. Okay. And you can go back to this episode. I'll link to it in the show notes. You can go back and listen to it and hear exactly what I said. You can also check out the Q&A. Maybe I'll link to that in the show notes as well, where I did my response explaining, no, I'm not anti-privacy. But I think perhaps some of Sek's question will get into that as well. We will, it's a long one. I was half tempted to just pull the audio and plug it in. But I want to read it, and it's actually going to be ironic because, yes, we've been talking a lot about AI recently, and there's actually more episodes of J-Star and I having, some fun, casual conversations around AI and the possibilities and where it can go. Of course, my stance has not changed at all. Like, I still don't even like it being called artificial intelligence. It should have a completely different term, because I, am not of the belief that it's even intelligence, or at least it's not AGI or ASI, right? It's not artificial general intelligence, and it's not artificial super intelligence either, and it never will be. So I still stand by that. I'm recording this in June of 2025, if you need a timestamp on that matter. Okay. I just want to make sure that that's abundantly clear. And I mean, am I allowed to change my mind if somehow I experience something, that powerful? Like, yes, sure, I could change my mind, but I don't think that's going to happen. And a big part of that is because of my understanding of the human condition and the human's kind of unique role, or rare, I should say, not unique, rare role within the superorganism that is the universe. Okay. And how that relates to even what's outside of the universe. I don't think machine intelligence, if there were such a thing, has anything at all to do with that. Despite what, perhaps an interesting Isaac Asimov short story might have suggested. Okay. And that really gets to, I know I ended this off with a bit of a cliffhanger at the end of the last Q&A that I did, that science fiction might be the greatest psyop of all time. This is something that is going to take time to really explore and unpack. By no means, because I also got responses to that at fu@xxtech.net. FU just stands for follow-up, folks, relax. I got responses to that being like, well, what, are you not a science fiction fan anymore? Are you fucking kidding me? If I bleed comic book ink, as I've always said, my genes are literally the words of Ellison, Asimov, Clark, Bradbury, Knight, Silverberg, go down the list. Like it's imprinted in my DNA. I couldn't not be it. Okay. So anyway, just to be clear on that. But, do I fall in line with what Kim Stanley Robinson says, that the concept of interstellar travel, at high speeds is a religious belief? Yes, like I agree, that's a religious belief, and I'm not a religious person, so obviously I don't hold that belief. But can I still enjoy Star Trek? Like real Star Trek? Yeah, of course. Anyway, so I want to get into this. Again, the irony is that I used quote unquote AI, okay, particularly I used some of Microsoft's technology to transcribe the audio that Sec had sent me. And of course I had his permission, to use these questions, to use his response. So it's not like I gave his data over to AI or anything like that. But here we go. So if it comes off funny sometimes, like I'm reading an AI transcript, which I think is great because I was using again, Microsoft service is based on ChatGPT's latest models. So you can laugh at Copilot all you want, but Copilot just has guardrails. Okay. And we're going to encounter them when I read this response, but that doesn't mean that it's any less efficacious. Okay. It just has some stricter guardrails that play, shall we say, a little more conservative. And I don't mean politically, I mean socially. So, okay. Let's do this. Here we go. A little response for this new episode. Emperor Prime. It actually says Temporary Prime. What's in that? I don't know. Of course, now he's known as J-Star. So maybe AI actually grabbed something from the universe. Who knows? I'm completely wrong. Holy shit. AI can actually interact with the mystical realm. Anyway, Emperor Prime. So, I don't like materialism or money in a lot of situations. Money complicates and makes things gross a lot, but there's a lyric, I think it was from Silverchair, and it's basically like anybody that thinks money isn't valuable has never had to live without it. And, money's got its place and, it's useful for, certain things. And I too hope for some sort of post-scarcity, at least for a lot of things, I would like to be able to produce so much abundance that basically our basic needs are met for more or less free or virtually nothing, and we can eliminate a lot of unnecessary little labor. Now, okay, Stallion breaking in for a second there. Okay. So we're in the money conversation. Money's fake, but Sec quotes Silverchair in that, anybody who thinks money isn't valuable has never had to live without it. Now, the funny thing is when he says, and I would like to be able to produce so much abundance in that, and eliminate a lot of unnecessary little labor. It's actually giving me asterisks because he said fucking labor, but Copilot won't go with the fucking. It doesn't like that. So block that out. Anyway, so I'll fill that in as it goes, but pretty much anytime Sec says fuck or shit, it won't transcribe it. So here we go. Reading on. I'm kind of a thing to work guy, but I also don't mind trading value for value either. I don't think there's anything wrong with that either. And it can be useful in a lot of situations, So is that, and, you did mention that you echo, we're awfully privileged here sitting and talking about how we wish everybody did things for fucking for you or whatever. And so there's that. And again, it's the me. God, this is so bad. This AI is so bad. It's the me I sent here earlier where it's I can't remember what you guys were talking about, but it's just fucking movies. Okay. So now he gets into the movies conversation. All right. So anyway, before I get into the movies thing, and there's going to be more, okay. He's got more questions here. Okay. Within this and more comments, I should say. So with the money thing, saying that money is fake, money is this and that. All right. And, in the idea that, well, I mean, I like the Silverchair lyric, that, those who don't think money is valuable has never had to live without it. Okay. Let's talk about money for a second, and the whole idea of post-scarcity and all this other stuff. Right. So you can listen back to the episode with J-Star and I, or at the time, Emperor Prime or Temporary Prime. So good. Oh, AI never change. No, it changes every second. Here's the thing with money. And I had already responded to Sec when he, messaged me about this, but here's the thing with money. Money can be, money is a tool. It can be a very powerful tool. It can also be a trap. Okay. So in fact, really money, from a mystical level, money can be a very powerful spiritual tool, in fact. All right. And I would actually argue that it is, and that can be good or bad. Okay. Or as in that can be helpful or not helpful to the individual. So I would say this: money is ultimately fake when it's something that's used to basically shore up value for the few, as in, perhaps what some would use the word elites or the parasites, instead of basically exchanging value with the many. So my point is that money as we understand it today, when it's basically centrally controlled, which the US dollar ultimately is, okay, other forms of money, cryptocurrency and things like this, it's funny. Like I love the argument that, like Bitcoin, and cryptocurrency in general has kind of like shown people, like it's been a reality check for a lot of people on how money works. Like so many people, in fact, I can remember in the early days of Bitcoin, so many people would come up to me and say, like, I just realized, like, all money is like based on nothing. Like the US dollar isn't real either, because like they're initially making the argument, oh, Bitcoin's not real. And then they realize, wait, when they apply that logic to the US dollar, wait, the US dollar isn't real either. Like cryptocurrency, if it had, just like AI, this is the same thing. So many technologies. Okay. Now I know a lot of people have these kind of errant fears around what happens when you introduce technology that the human is not prepared to deal with the repercussions of, there's fears around it, right? Fear that AI is going to turn into Skynet, fear that, like Bitcoin is going to devalue, all methods of exchange, or something else, or that Bitcoin is going to turn into, or maybe not Bitcoin, but some cryptocurrency is going to turn into like a central digital currency that is controlled, and that, look, so many forms of currency are already that, but regardless, this is the amazing thing with a lot of technologies, is it actually, when you reflect on the technology, it shows you a powerful truth. Okay. Just like when you reflect on AI, as we understand it today with LLMs and all of this, okay, it shows you actually how powerful you, the human being, are because of how hard it fails, right? Just how bad it is at doing things that even a 5-year-old human could blow it away at. And I think, sadly, we don't take the opportunity for that reflection. And this is true for many tools. For example, you don't know how strong you are until you go into the gym and you start lifting weights. And then one day, I've given this example to people a million times. This is the moment where they get hooked to going to the gym. What happens is one day you go to just lift up a can of beans, and suddenly that can of beans is so ridiculously lighter than it has ever been in your life. But it's the same, can of black beans or bonzo beans or something that you've been having your whole life. And you just realize, whoa, I can be stronger. I can be more powerful. It's that same kind of reflection that we can look at, say like AI, and say, wow, the human mind is amazing. Holy shit, because we are so much smarter than this thing. Yeah, this thing has a ton of facts, but it has no idea what to do with them. And it has no intrinsic desire, right? Like, sure, an AI can say, as Steve Gibson made the great point, an AI can say, I want a lollipop, but that means nothing to it, right? As to where with the human, I want a lollipop. Okay, go get yourself a goddamn lollipop and enjoy it. The LLM can't do that. Never will. Why? Because it's programmatic. Money is also programmatic. And it hasn't just become programmatic since Bitcoin, since digital currencies. That's not when money became programmatic. Money has, except for maybe the cowrie shell, has always been, and maybe gold or something, has always been programmatic. Okay. Anytime, I mean, that's the very heart of a fiat currency, but anytime, we're talking about like this centrally decided upon currency, it's always programmatic because there's set values, there's like set amounts, or there's not a set amounts, like there's an unlimited, like the US dollar can basically be printed at any point and it, you just end up with like this fake trillions of dollars numbers of debt. Okay. All fake. It's fake, but it's programmatic. Just like AI isn't actually intelligence, it's programmatic. Money is the same deal. And it's always the same deal. So the question becomes, when we look at a currency, at a type of money, okay, at a tool, what is it programmed to do? Is it programmed to lift up the whole, as in WHOLE? Or is it programmed to lift up a very specific group of people or a certain class? And that's what you have to do. You have to judge, this money by that metric. Okay. Like, what is it programmed to do? Now, I would argue, and I don't think it's, I don't think it's a stretch, considering that, well, and this isn't just true for the US dollar. There are other currencies that have similar affairs or similar things, because the US dollar is actually replete with symbolism on it. This is money programmed to serve a specific group of people who engaged in that programming. Now, it's not computer programming, it's mystical programming, but it's esoteric, but it's programming nonetheless. Okay. So when we make the claim, or when I make the claim anyway, that when I say money is fake, it's fake in the sense that, like, if money isn't designed to serve the whole, as in it's not meant to exchange value with the many instead of the few. Okay. When it's made to only serve the few, it's really anti-money at that point. Okay. Because it's not a tool that any human being can pick up and benefit from. It's really a tool that only a specific few get to benefit from at the end of the day. And yes, I do think that the US dollar was programmed that way. All right. And man, we could get into so many conversations around, what was L. Frank Baum saying? Right. Well, give me a second. Zordon is contacting me here. Okay. Anyway, we'll move on from that. No Ranger business here. All right. So what was that joke about the Green Ranger being Jewish and he's green because of money? And all right, we'll leave that be. That's a odd bit of synchronicity, perhaps. Okay. So, this is the point, is that most money as we encounter it today, and I am not saying that cryptocurrencies are necessarily immune to this. Maybe some are, maybe some aren't. Okay. That's a separate conversation, but most money really is anti-money because, again, it's designed from the top down to serve the few and not the many. Okay. Now, I'm not making any kind of dumbass Marxist, comment here. This is speaking from, well, for lack of a better term, and I hate the term, but for lack of a better term, this is speaking from a spiritual sense, from a sense of the whole human. Okay. Mind, spirit, body. So that when I say money is fake, that's the thing. So like because what's more real to you, right? Is it $10 or honestly the $10 Pakistani cheap steel knife? No offense to the people of Pakistan. Okay. The knife is more useful to you, right? The knife is more real because it's a tool that you can use. All right. As to where the $10, there's very much an upper limit of what that will do for you. In the end, it ultimately serves those that are shoring up all of this value, taking it from you, okay, and not putting it back into, what we could call the economy or into the community. Again, I'm not making any communist Marxist, kind of shit here. All right. I am speaking from a completely different level, and a level that Marx wouldn't believe in the first place. Okay. So that's my point in that. Like, I agree with what Sek was saying. Like, yes, money is useful. Money is valuable, can be valuable. Okay. But it only has true value when it's something that serves the many. because we're a social species. Okay. And the problem is today, money doesn't serve the many. And honestly, like, before somebody asks me, and it's fine if they do, but before somebody asks me, what do I think that Bitcoin is actually this money? Bitcoin had the possibility to be that because, this gets into a much more complex situation a more complex conversation than I actually plan on having. Because what I want to say to you is that, again, Zach's point, I agree with. Okay. Overall, it's just like, let's define money, right? And that's something that I should do more often. But with cryptocurrency, I have heard stories from people very directly connected to some of the creation of some of these cryptocurrencies. Okay. Do people not like that word? Do people not like that word anymore? You'll have to let me know. Okay. Cryptocurrencies. That honestly, some very esoteric and mystical shit happened in the creation of some of these cryptocurrencies. Okay. Because my point is that with the US dollar, I absolutely think that esoteric shit was involved in the creation of the US dollar. So, but what I want to say is that, well, because it's computer code, there can't be esoteric shit that happens to it, but maybe that's not so true. Okay. And we don't have examples of mystics or grimoires or, magical texts to look back upon to tell us about, well, can computer code be esoteric? Can it be mystically enforced or something like that? Like we don't have that history. And so that's kind of very new territory. That is certainly worth talking about and exploring. And, I'd love to do it, but so I don't want to say that so easily, but yes, Bitcoin was great because it wasn't like, there wasn't this kind of central plan, okay, by people who are at least already, incredibly wealthy, unless you think the CIA invented Bitcoin, in which case, then all of this argument is moot, but it's still worth talking about and theorizing about a little bit here. Okay. Because regardless of how Bitcoin came to be or how any cryptocurrency was developed, the reality is nothing, let's just cut right to the chase. Nothing is priced in cryptocurrency. It's always a price based upon the US dollar, the euro, whatever, fiat currency or, recognized currency that you're using. So ultimately, no, Bitcoin is, to use a phrase, Bitcoin is a slave to the US dollar, right? Yes. Look, no, it's just true. Okay. We could be talking about companies that, like real estate companies, even that accept, cryptocurrency, and great. Okay. And sure, they'll give you the price of it in cryptocurrency, but that price is based upon the US dollar at that day. Right. So is it really like a different currency? No. I mean, you can acquire it differently, and that gives it some appeal for sure. But at the end of the day, it's not really a different currency. So that's my point, like about cryptocurrencies in general, is they could be a currency that serves the many. And it has an element in that it can be, achieved without, KYC or, whatever. Like, but yeah, it's still something that ultimately serves the few because its value is based upon the price structure that the few have laid out. Okay. So that's the problem with cryptocurrency. Now, if we were pricing things independently in Bitcoin and not based on the US dollar, different story. At that point, it may be the currency of the many, which is great. But it's just not there. Maybe it'll get there. I hope, that something does, but I don't know. So, I mean, that's all I can really say to that and leave it at that. Okay. So anyway, I hope I made my point clear about why I say like money is fake. It's fake in the sense that basically all government issued currencies and or, anything that bases its value also on government currencies is ultimately anti-money. It's not really money, right? Because it's serving the few instead of the many. So, okay. Moving on from that. Let's get into the movie conversation. So, okay. How we wish, let's see. So is that, and I did know you mentioned that we're awfully privileged sitting here and talking about it. All right. How we wish everything did things for fucking for you and whatever. And that's that. And again, it's me sitting here. It's like, I can't remember what you guys were talking about, but just like fucking movies or whatever the thing, but it's like, not everything has to be The Godfather or Reservoir Dogs or whatever. Pick your Apocalypse now, pick your, masterpiece or fucking whatever. And sometimes like lowbrow, dumb Sharknado fucking movies are just fun to sit and watch. I used to love sitting and watching just cheesy fucking shoot 'em up action movies or whatever the thing, or this monster is trying to kill you, or there's a fucking giant crocodile for some reason. It's going to kill everyone. And we got all the other, and it's just fun. Not everything has to have a point sometimes. Just dumb fun is fine too. It's like another guy I like a lot of, let's see, deep philosophical conversations, but I also like, I'm another guy who I like a lot of deep philosophical conversations, but I also like fart and fucking jokes and shit jokes. Like those are also good too, like there's no high mind, it's a balance of both, it's so little nonsense every now and then. There's yeah. Anyway, so to get to the point on that, yeah, about movies like that, it's okay to just enjoy Sharknado movies. And this is another point where I completely agree with Sec. And actually, like, I think, I don't want to speak for J-Star, but I think you would feel the same. Like, I totally agree with you. Again, I have kind of a legendary physical disc movie collection and TV series collection. And I have more Sharknado type movies, not literal Sharknado movies, though I do have some of those. I have more, like the dumbass cheesy action flicks than I have of any other movie. Like I actually have comparatively out of thousands of movies, I have because also there aren't that many highbrow movies that get made for sure, but I have way more, cheesy lowbrow stuff than I do the highbrow stuff. And I love the lowbrow stuff way more than I actually like a lot of the highbrow stuff. I mean, I dig the highbrow stuff for sure, but same thing. Like I am a guy who, I am into the deepest mystical and philosophical conversations, but then I also watch Beavis and Butthead every day. No exaggeration. So now I would also argue that Beavis and Butthead is actually far more philosophical than they get credit for, at least, and certainly in recent years. But regardless, yes, I am all about dick jokes, Jew jokes, ass joke, bathroom humor, all the way. So I'm totally with you on that. I mean, like some of my favorite movies, when I say them to people, like it blows their minds because I think I get this same kind of, what's the term I'm looking for? I have this reputation, of just being this very intellectual guy. And it's like, yeah, yes, I am. I understand why and I'm honored and I understand why you think that. And I'm not saying, I mean, Sec knows me well, so I'm not worried about it. But at the same time, like, no, I'm an animal, and I accept that. And that's like the height of intellectuality is realizing that you're an animal and in fact embracing it. And I'm, I have the dirtiest mind and have the worst jokes. Man, some of my worst Jew jokes I've never said on air, and I will not say them on air. It's a good way to get banned off of things. Not that I'm afraid of that, but why? Like, it doesn't serve anybody for me to do that. So anyway, I'm totally with you on that. Now, he gets into, because I think we did kind of like lean in this direction about that perhaps with AI, we could look at where it could clean up some aspects of, because honestly, the transcript made no goddamn sense out of this. I should have just played the audio. But we're going to run with it. All right. If anybody really wants to hear it, I'm sure Sec won't mind, and I'll put in the audio. But he brings up the point that, like, look, the people developing AI and all this, the corporatists, like, they're not going to let this be a freeing technology. They're not going to let it, if AI allows for UBI, which I think we were kind of suggesting that as a potentiality. Okay. In that episode that we did, that J-Star and I did. All right. They're not going to, if it did develop some kind of UBI, it would be a UBI kind of like in The Expanse, where it's a UBI that keeps you under a glass ceiling, right? Like, it keeps you held down. It's like just enough to subsist, and that's it, and maybe it would end up, well, I mean, this isn't sex words, but I guess basically maybe it would end up with killing you quicker. Right. And so that's his point, is that, like, the corporatists aren't going to, like, relinquish control just because AI suddenly makes things more efficient. Now, so to respond to this, okay, to this idea, there's a concept called TESCREAL, not my idea. I think that phrase sounds terrible, but I get the point. And the idea is, and this kind of comes out of, like, Mark Andreessen's, like, like his technology manifesto, where he's basically saying, like, look, we're going to move fast and break a ton of things, but in the future, 100 years from now or more, in the long term, all the experimentation and maybe even lots of people dying and who knows what else happens, over the next 100 years with us experimenting, like, humanity will come out stronger from this, and we'll figure out the right things to do. And basically future generations of humanity will be able to live in a paradise. Okay. Through our technological experimentation and all the other shit that we do. And maybe that even includes UBI or whatever, who knows? Okay. So this is that concept of TESCREAL, that in the long term, all of these things that we think are, impinging on our human rights, which those don't exist, but whatever, but our humanity, in the long term will ultimately serve us as a whole. I don't think so. Okay. I mean, here's the thing. Okay. If agentic AI, as an AI that does things for you as an agent and goes out upon there. Okay. AI only works because we live in an electronic, computerized, interconnected civilization. That's the only reason AI works. Okay. Otherwise, it means nothing. Like the lollipop example. What the fuck is a lollipop? Right? We can have lollipops without computers, but a computer can't have a lollipop without computers. And even then it can't. What if we put it in an Android body? It said 6.7, like, holy shit. That's still, like, programmed. Okay. Like, are lollipops good? I mean, look, you got it. The example is so perfect that Steve Gibson came up with, because, an AI is going to be able to analyze, like, what maybe in an AI, like some kind of nanotech body or something that it has, some Android body. Okay. It might have, like flavor receptors of some kind. Okay. And it could analyze what it tastes like, but, like, does it know if it actually likes the sweeter or, flavor of a certain lollipop as compared to a sour flavor of another lollipop? No, because it's just programmed to analyze what it is, but it doesn't have an actual desire. It hasn't developed a taste. It doesn't have a gut bacteria that changes based upon, its diet, to where, like, actually when I was a little kid, I hated peas, but now that I'm older, I actually love them. Why? Because your gut bacteria changed. That doesn't happen with AI. Do you understand? These things aren't fucking intelligent. They're not real. They're real as in, like, they're programmed, but they don't exist. Okay. In the, to use the term from another philosopher, in the field of value. They just don't. And that's fine. That's okay. It's not a bad thing. Holy shit. So I don't know why people get insulted by this. I mean, listen to my Mission Impossible review, because I feel like Silicon Valley was terrified that a movie was going to suggest that AI, is like antithetical to human existence or something. I mean, whatever. Anyway, not going to get lost on that. Okay. So we have these AI agents, right, that are serviceable and work well within a computer interconnected civilization. It's the only place that they work well, and it's the only place that they have power. Okay? Yes, an AI is a hyperlogical being. Hyperlogical in the sense, okay, it's not that it can't be wrong, but in the sense that it bases its output on its inputs. Okay? The power of being human is that you don't have to do that. You can act outside of instinct. Okay? You can refuse the input, or you can refuse to react to the input, right? So, a hyperlogical being what it cannot handle, even if it can quote unquote hallucinate, right? Where, AI gets things wrong or makes stuff up. Okay. Again, using these anthropomorphized terms is a real problem. All right. But an AI cannot handle doublespeak. And as I've said before, government power over structures rely upon the lie. They rely upon doublespeak. AI cannot handle doublespeak. So AI in a infrastructure where that has agency, okay, can be useful to a freedom-loving individual, because a freedom-loving individual hopefully would not engage in doublespeak. And so your AI as an anarchist is actually more powerful than the government's AI, because it's faster. It doesn't have to deal with, XYZ, whatever. And wait, but the government has more servers and blah, blah, blah. And believe me, we're going to get to the point where that doesn't matter. Okay. And that's a whole other, in fact, that's an argument I didn't bring up in my Mission Impossible Final Reckoning review, is that like the idea that there was like some ancient AI that was Yahweh or something like that. The amount of power that would be required for that. Anyway, it's such a mess. People just don't think. Okay. So I'm all over the place here. So AI can be a useful tool to the individual is my point. All right. And we've already shown where AI that can run on local machines, fairly modest local machines, can actually be incredibly beneficial and in fact be faster and outperform large server models. Okay. So the idea that, the person with the more computing power wins isn't exactly true. It's actually this, and look, this is a reality of computer science that I empathize and respect, that most people don't understand this. Okay. But as somebody who has read The Art of Computer Programming by Donald Knuth, the entire series, including the last Fastest Seal that just came out this year. All right. Let me assure you, all right, that you have code you have computers that can be incredibly powerful and run an ass ton of code. Okay. Like an LLM or something, right? So you can have that. Or, and great. And that could be a really, really powerful AI, really, really powerful agentic AI or something. Or what you can do is you can actually write very efficient code, not large amounts of code, but very efficient code, right? That is what we would call, that writes bare metal for the hardware. And that very efficient code, say if you wrote, like, here's an example, a web browser. If you wrote a web browser in assembly language, right, which is a bare metal, like that's writing at the hardware level. Okay. If you wrote a web browser in assembly language, now this would take a lot of time to do. This would be very difficult. But if you wrote that, it would blow away Google Chrome. Just blow it away. Because of the efficiency of the code and the specificity of the code. Okay, so this is my point, is that efficient code is actually greater. This is a computer science axiom. Efficient code is more powerful than powerful hardware. Okay? So that's my point, is that at the end of the day, in some ways, it doesn't fucking matter how much processing power the US government has, or, technocracy or the corporatists have for their AI. If you write the AI with really efficient code, think DeepSeek, right? You can blow that thing. You can blow all that horsepower, that hardware horsepower, that computing horsepower away. And, this is one of the attractive things about computers is because the code is the code, right? And what it does, what you tell it to do, it's going to do. And you can actually make things, really efficient and so on. So anyway, I don't want to get too lost on that, but this is my point, is that there's a highly likely and possible future where freedom-loving individuals can have access to more powerful computational tools designed for the surveillance society that we live in that outmatch the government. It will be an even playing field. Or actually, it won't even be even. It can be above and beyond. Because everybody has access to code. It's one of the ultimate decentralized technologies. Does that ultimately matter? Well, in the grand scheme of you being a co-creator within the superorganism that is the universe, no. But, on a materialist level, sure, that matters. So I don't disagree with Sec that, yeah, we're likely heading into a corporatist AI nightmare. Okay. But, those same tools, the beauty of computers is that we really are, whether it's via hardware or code, we can be at an even playing field. They don't have, those don't have some kind of technology greater than, the individual, right? Because you can always level the playing field with efficient code. So this is just a key point to bring up. Okay. Now, yeah, I don't think the powers that be are going to let go of that sort of stuff. And this is why, all right, what we actually need, and this is going to feel like it's out of left field, but I don't mean it to be. All right. This is why an understanding of the human condition is so important. Okay. Because why are people engaging in this shit in the first place? Why are people engaging in, and not just of the human condition, but also of the universal condition, as in, like level 1, level 2, level 3, you've heard me talk about that in some other podcasts. Okay. Like what's happening at the level 2, right? Like what forces, what beings are operating at that level, and what are the desires there? Okay. Then what are the desires at level 3, level 4, and so on? And understanding the desires, not just of humans, but of other sapient beings and forces. Like this is absolutely key. Absolutely key. Getting, striking the root at that stuff. Like, why are they doing this in the first place? What is it that they want? And so on. More importantly, though, answering the question, what do you want? What do you actually want? Most people, even people who think that, oh man, yeah, I've gone to therapy. I've got all these, self-help shit and philosophical texts and blah, I've done it all. Even so many of those people are completely incapable of answering, what do they want? What do I want? They don't know. They're still basing all of that on simulacra, as Baudrillard would say. So those are things that if we want to spend time and like get outside of the corporatist system, those are the things that we really need to look at. Okay. So I don't disagree with Sec really on anything. I mean, like I get his point about money. Again, it can be a very useful tool. At present, it's not, right? I mean, yes, we use it to subsist, and UBI in that sense, like if UBI is based upon, a monetary system that still serves the few, then UBI is bullshit. Right. So I'm with him, like on all of this, and I'm really appreciative of him for giving me the chance, to kind of to explain myself a bit more and get into some deeper concepts. But I'm going to wrap that up here. And if you have questions on any of this or something I need to expand upon, give me the chance to expand upon it like Sec did. Such a wonderful friend. He really is. But like, I just love that there can be this exchange of conversation. And, if you disagree with something I said, give me the chance to expand or to say, hey, I'm wrong, because I can be. Okay. As much as Ellen says so, as much as my wife tells me that I'm perfect, I'm not. I mean, really all I care about is if she thinks that. But anyway, I will leave it all at that. And get in your questions, fu@xxtech.net, or get them in the YouTube comments or in the Spotify comments, however the hell you want to do it. And I will see all of you, on the other side.